I shouldn't have knocked on her bedroom door that night. It wasn't my place. I was just the cleaning guy. But when I heard her coughing, sharp, desperate, like her lungs were tearing apart, I froze in the hallway with a rag in, my hand and my past in my throat. Because I've heard that sound before, and the last time I ignored it, I buried my wife 6 months later. You'd think working in a $12 million penthouse would feel impressive. It didn't. It felt sterile. White marble, glass walls, furniture that looked like it had never been touched by human hands. Elena Wright lived there, tech millionaire, magazine covers, health panels, the kind of woman people call unstoppable, but unstoppable people don't cough like that. The first time I saw her up close, the door opened just a crack. Her face was pale, eyes shadowed, beautiful but tired in a way that money can't fix. "I'm fine," she said. That word, fine. My wife used to say that too, right before she stopped being fine forever. I went back to wiping countertops. But I couldn't stop listening for another cough. I couldn't stop noticing things after that. The mints scattered near the coffee machine. The windows always open even when the air was cold. The purifier running nonstop. And then I smelled it. Faint, burnt, hidden. Cigarettes. I found the bag a week later, stuffed behind the side balcony AC unit. 20, maybe 30 cigarette butts wrapped in tissue like they were something shameful. My chest tightened. Because I didn't just see a habit. I saw a timeline. And the worst part, when she caught me looking at her one night, really looking there, was something in her eyes that wasn't arrogance. It was fear. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about smoking. It was about what she was running from. And I had to decide something that terrified me. Was I about to overstep and lose my job? Or stay silent and watch history repeat itself? I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the cigarettes. Because of her eyes. You know that look someone gives when they're barely holding it together? Like if you say one honest sentence, they might shatter? I saw that look before. In a hospital room. I kept telling myself Elena Wright wasn't my responsibility. She had doctors, advisors, assistants, a board of directors. I had a mop. But the next night when I walked into that penthouse at 11 Syrpim, the air felt heavier. She was home. The master bedroom door was open this time. That had never happened before. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, shoulders slumped. Phone in her hand like it weighed too much. When she saw me, she straightened immediately, mask on. "Marcus, I didn't realize you'd be here already." "I come at the same time every night," I said softly. A flicker of something crossed her face. Embarrassment, maybe. She stood up too fast. That's when it hit her. The coughing. Not polite, not small, violent. She turned away from me like she could hide it from the air itself. I stepped forward without thinking. "Sit down." She froze. People don't tell her what to do. I could see that. But she sat. Her hands were shaking. "I'm fine," she said again, breathless. "You're not," I answered quietly. Silence filled the room. I expected anger. Instead, she looked tired. "Do you always ignore boundaries?" she asked. "Only when someone's hurting," I thought. Out loud, I said, "Only when it feels important." That's when the tension shifted. She studied me differently. Not as staff. Not as invisible. As a man. "Why do you care?" she asked. And there it was. The real question. Because caring costs something. Because I lost someone once for staying quiet. But instead of saying all that, I just said, "Because I've seen where this goes." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about me." She was right. But I knew addiction. And I knew loneliness. And something about the way she stood in that perfect room. Fragile and furious. Told me she was drowning in both. She looked away first. And that's when I realized something dangerous. I didn't just want her to quit. I wanted her to trust me. And that terrified me more than losing the job ever could. I shouldn't have said what I said next. But sometimes truth slips out before pride can stop it. My wife used to say she was fine too. The room went still. Elena didn't look at me at first. She stared at the city outside her window, like it might rescue her from the conversation. "That's not the same thing," she said quietly. "It is," I replied. And I hated how steady my voice sounded, because inside I was shaking. I don't talk about my wife. Not to clients. Not to strangers. Not to women who live 42 floors above the ground and wear strength like armor. But something about Elena made silence feel like a mistake. "She smoked for years," I continued. She hid it. Said it helped her think, helped her breathe. Elena's fingers tightened around the edge of her nightstand. "That's different," she whispered again. But this time, it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. I stepped back, gave her space. "I'm not judging you," I said. "I just recognize the signs." Her eyes snapped to mine. "Don't," she said sharply. "Don't analyze me." There it was, fear wrapped in anger. I nodded slowly. Okay. Silence again. Then something shifted. Her shoulders dropped. You think I don't know what it's doing to me? She asked. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was tired. You think I don't feel it? That was the first crack, and God help me, I noticed how close we were standing. Too close. Close enough to see the faint tremble in her bottom lip. Close enough to notice how pale she really was. You don't have to be perfect with me, I said. The words came out softer than I expected. Her breath caught. That was the spark. Not attraction exactly. Recognition. Like two people who understand damage in different languages. She looked at me like she wanted to believe that. Like she wanted someone to see the mess behind the image. Marcus. She started, then stopped. Because vulnerability is terrifying when you're used to control. And in that moment, I realized something dangerous. If she let me in, this wouldn't just be about cigarettes anymore. It would be about everything she's afraid to admit. And I wasn't sure either of us were ready for that. The night she almost collapsed. That's when everything changed. I walked in and the penthouse was dark. No music, no soft lights, no hum of the air purifier. Just silence, the kind that feels wrong. Elena? I called out. No answer. Then I heard something from the hallway near the elevator. A sharp inhale. Like someone trying to breathe through water. I ran. She was on the floor. Back against the wall, blazer half off. Purse spilled beside her. Her face was pale. Lips slightly blue. For a split second I saw my wife. And panic hit me like a fist. Elena, look at me. Her eyes found mine, wide, frightened. I can't, she whispered. I can't breathe. I pulled out my phone. She grabbed my wrist. Don't, she said, almost pleading. No ambulance, please. That word again, please. Not CEO, not controlled, not composed, just scared. You need help, I said. Not like this, she breathed. Not in the hallway. Not where people can see. And there it was. The real illness. Not the nicotine, the image. I hesitated. That was my internal war. Do I protect her pride or protect her life? I slid my phone back into my pocket. Then I lifted her. She was lighter than I expected. Fragile. I carried her inside, sat her on the couch, knelt in front of her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Slow breaths, I said. With me. Inhale, exhale. Her hand gripped my shirt. Not gently. Desperately. And something in my chest shifted in a way that scared me. Because this wasn't professional anymore. This wasn't employer and employee. This was two broken people in a quiet room at midnight. Pretending they weren't terrified of losing control. After a few minutes, her breathing steadied. Color returned to her face. She looked at me differently. Not embarrassed. Not defensive. Soft. I thought I was going to die, she whispered. I swallowed. You're not, I said. But the truth was, for a moment there, I thought I was about to lose her too, and I didn't understand why that possibility hurt so much. She didn't pull her hand away, even after she could breathe again, even after the danger passed. Her fingers were still twisted in my shirt, like I was the only solid thing in the room. That scared me more than the coughing did. I hate this, she whispered. Not dramatic, not angry, just tired. I stayed kneeling in front of her. Too close. Closer than I should have been. What do you hate? I asked. Needing someone. The words hit harder than I expected. I leaned back slightly, giving her space. That's not weakness. For you, maybe not, she said. You're used to surviving. I built my life on being untouchable. There it was again. The image. The armor. I stood up slowly and handed her water. Our fingers brushed. Small contact. But neither of us moved away immediately. That's when I felt it. Not attraction exactly. Awareness. The kind that sneaks up quietly. You almost passed out in a hallway, I said gently. That's not untouchable. That's exhausted. She gave a weak smile. You're very blunt for a cleaning guy. And you're very bad at pretending you're fine. That made her laugh. A real one this time. Soft, unexpected. And God, it changed her whole face. For a second, she didn't look like a millionaire. She looked like a woman who hadn't laughed in months. Then the doubt crept back into her eyes. You're going to think less of me, she said suddenly. For what? For not being able to stop. There it was. The confession hiding underneath everything. I shook my head. I think more of you for trying. Her eyes searched mine, like she was testing the truth in my voice. Silence stretched between us. Not awkward. Heavy. Charged. You should go home, she said finally. It's late. I nodded. But neither of us moved. Because we both knew something shifted tonight. This wasn't just about cigarettes anymore. And the dangerous part? I wasn't sure I wanted it to be just that. As I walked toward the door, she said my name. Soft. Marcus. I turned. Thank you for not calling the ambulance. And the way she said it, like I had protected more than her health, made me realize something I wasn't ready to admit. I was already too involved. The next morning she texted me, not about cleaning, not about scheduling, just 2 words. Are you awake? I stared at my phone longer than I should have. Clients don't text at 7:12 a.m. I almost didn't reply. Almost. Yeah, everything okay? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back. I didn't sleep. Something tightened in my chest. Amy was eating cereal across the table from me, swinging her legs, talking about a spelling test. And there I was, thinking about a woman 42 floors above the city who couldn't sleep without nicotine. I have to step outside for a second, I told my daughter. That's when guilt crept in, not because I was helping, but because I cared. I called her instead of texting back. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was softer in the morning, less guarded. I keep thinking about last night, she said. Me too, I admitted. Silence, breathing on both ends. You didn't look at me like I was pathetic, she said. The vulnerability in that sentence nearly broke me. You weren't pathetic, I replied. I was on the floor. You were scared. Another pause. I don't let people see that, she whispered. I know. And that was the spark again. Not flirtation, understanding. I keep thinking. She continued slowly, what if I can't do this? What if I quit and I still feel empty? There it was. The real fear, not withdrawal, loneliness. You won't be empty, I said carefully. You'll just feel things you've been muting. She exhaled slowly. That sounds worse. It's temporary. You don't know that. She was right. I didn't. And for the first time, doubt crept in. What if I was pushing her towards something she wasn't ready for? What if helping her meant unraveling her entire life? Come over today, she said suddenly. That caught me off guard. In the daytime? Yes. Her voice was steadier now. I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. My heart beat faster than it should have. This wasn't professional anymore. This was personal. And as I looked back through the kitchen window at my daughter laughing at something on the cereal box, a new fear rose inside me. If I stepped further into Elena's world, what would it cost mine? 3 days later, she relapsed. I knew before she said it. The windows were open again, the air purifier was running on high, and that faint, burnt smell lingered in the kitchen like a secret that didn't want to stay buried. She was standing by the sink when I walked in. Back to me, shoulders stiff. I messed up, she said before I could even speak. No excuses, no pretending, just that. I set my keys down slowly. Okay. She turned around, waiting for disappointment. I had one, she continued. Just one. I told myself it would calm me down before a board call. And it did. Her voice cracked. For 10 minutes. The guilt in her eyes wasn't about the cigarette. It was about failing in front of me. That realization twisted something inside me. You didn't fail, I said. She laughed bitterly. I inhaled poison after promising you I wouldn't. You promised yourself, I corrected gently. Silence. Then she stepped closer. Too close. Why aren't you angry? She asked. Because I've seen worse. Because addiction isn't clean. Because I care more than I should. Instead, I said, because quitting isn't a straight line. Her eyes softened, and that's when the tension changed. Not crisis tension. Something quieter, personal. I don't want you to look at me differently, she said. I don't. That was the truth. If anything, she looked braver standing there admitting it than she ever did on magazine covers. Her hand brushed mine accidentally. Neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, warmer, dangerous. You shouldn't be this kind to me, she whispered. Why? Because I'm your employer. There it was. The line. The boundary neither of us had named out loud. I stepped back first. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. You're also human, I said carefully. Her jaw tightened. You make it very hard to stay distant, Marcus. My heart did something reckless in my chest. Distance. That word meant she felt it too. And that's when I understood the real risk. This wasn't about her getting healthy anymore. It was about what happens when 2 lonely people stop pretending. They don't need each other, and I didn't know which one of us was in more danger now. I tried to pull back after that. I really did. Shorter visits, fewer conversations, more focus on the job, but distance only made the silence louder. She noticed. Of course she did. You're different, she said one afternoon, leaning against the kitchen counter while I wiped it down. Different how? Careful. I kept my eyes on the marble. That's probably a good thing. For who? She asked. That question lingered, because I didn't have an answer that wouldn't change everything. The truth? I was scared. Not of her relapse. Not of her coughing. I was scared of wanting something that didn't fit into my life. Single dad. Cleaning shift, routine, stability. She was investors, conferences, headlines. Two different worlds. You don't have to retreat, she said softly. I looked up then. Her eyes weren't defensive anymore. They were searching. I don't want to blur lines, I replied. And if I don't care about lines, that caught me off guard. My chest tightened. You should, I said quietly. She stepped closer. Not bold, not dramatic, just closer. I don't want to be alone in this, she said. Not the quitting, not the rebuilding, and not whatever this is. There it was, unspoken becoming spoken. I swallowed, because part of me wanted to close that space between us, and part of me saw Amy's face in my mind like a warning. You deserve someone stable, I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. You think you're not? I don't know if I can give you what you need. The vulnerability surprised both of us. She studied me for a long moment. You already have, she said quietly. And that did something to me I wasn't ready for, because she wasn't talking about cigarettes anymore. She was talking about presence, trust, something deeper. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Amy's school reminder. Real life, real responsibility. Elena noticed the shift in my expression. You have someone else depending on you, she said softly. Yes. Her gaze softened. I don't want to complicate your world. But she already had. And the dangerous truth? I didn't want to untangle it, because for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was feeling something again. And that terrified me more than any relapse ever could. I didn't plan for her to meet my daughter. It just happened. Amy's after-school program closed early that day. And my mom had a doctor's appointment. I had no backup. So I brought her with me. I told myself it was temporary. Quick stop. In and out. But when Elena opened the door and saw Amy standing beside me with her pink backpack and serious little expression, something shifted in her face. Not judgment, softness. Hi, Elena said gently, kneeling down. You must be Amy. My daughter looked up at me first, always checking. It's okay, I nodded. I'm 9, Amy said proudly. Elena smiled. That's a powerful age. That made Amy grin, and I felt my chest tighten for a reason I didn't expect. Because Elena didn't look uncomfortable. She looked careful, like she understood this moment mattered. I kept waiting for awkwardness, for distance, for the reminder that this wasn't appropriate. Instead, Elena asked Amy about school, about her favorite subject, about the book sticking out of her backpack. And she listened, really listened. Watching them together did something dangerous to me. It made me imagine, which is something I stopped allowing myself after my wife died. You're good with her, I said quietly when Amy went to explore the living room. Elena's eyes followed her. I didn't grow up with much attention, she admitted softly. I notice when kids need it. There was vulnerability in that confession, a different kind, not addiction, loneliness. I don't want to complicate your life, she said again. You keep saying that, I replied. Because I'm scared of becoming something that hurts you. That caught me off guard. You're not hurting me. Not yet, she said honestly. The air shifted between us. This wasn't just tension anymore. This was risk, real risk. Because when Amy came running back, laughing, and grabbed Elena's hand to show her something by the window, I saw it, not fantasy, not illusion, possibility. And possibility is terrifying when you've already lost everything once. That night, after Amy fell asleep in the back seat, I sat in my car longer than usual, because for the first time since my wife died, I was afraid to hope again. And I didn't know if my heart was strong enough to survive it twice. The night she told her board the truth, she came to my apartment afterward. Not the penthouse, my place. Second floor unit, old carpet, too small kitchen. She stood in my doorway without makeup, without the armor, holding a bottle of sparkling water like it was something ceremonial. I did it, she said. Her voice was shaking. I told them everything. I stepped aside and let her in. Amy was asleep. The apartment was quiet in a different way than hers, lived in quiet. What did they say, I asked. She laughed softly, not bitter this time, relieved. They didn't fire me. They didn't judge me. One of them admitted she's in therapy. She looked at me like she was still surprised. I built monsters in my head that didn't exist. I nodded slowly. We all do. She walked around my small living room like it was sacred ground. Pictures of Amy on the wall, a cracked coffee table, normal life. You weren't afraid of losing your image, she said quietly. I already lost everything once, I answered. Silence fell between us. Not heavy, honest. She stepped closer, not rushed, not impulsive, intentional. I don't want to build a life on pretending anymore, she said. Not my company, not my health, not this. The word hovered between us. I don't need perfection, she continued softly. I need real. My chest tightened. Real comes with scars, I warned. She reached up slowly, resting her hand over my heart. So does surviving. The spark that had been building for months finally stopped pretending. I leaned down, paused, giving her space to step back. She didn't. Our kiss wasn't dramatic. It was careful, like two people testing whether hope was safe again. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. 5 months, she whispered. Still going. Not just about smoking, about honesty, about choosing life. And as I held her there in my small, imperfect apartment, I realized something I wish I'd understood years ago. Sometimes the person who saves you also needs saving. And sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly, it just stays.